You know what helps epoxy mix? Dance moves. Hey everyone, Xyla Foxlin here, and today we are at TotalBoat, and I'm gonna show you guys how to mix and measure your epoxy properly, because like, if you screw this up, your whole project is The first most important thing you're gonna wanna check is the mix ratio. So this one, for example, is 2:1, and this one is 3:1. So make sure you get that right. There are also 5:1s and 1:1s. And that's about it. Another easy mistake to make is temperature. So epoxy is super temperature sensitive. Epoxy is super temperature sensitive, just like me, and so pretty much the happiest it is when I am happy, which is about 70 degrees. So like a nice t-shirt temperature, and you're gonna get a really good cure. If it is too hot, you have the potential for a runaway exothermic reaction, which basically means it's gonna cure really quickly and bubble and smoke. And if it's too cold, it'll either take a really long time to cure, be cloudy, or sometimes might not even cure at all. Something that's been really helpful for me is to just have a thermometer in my shop, so I know if it's a really good epoxy pour day, or if it's a day where I'm gonna have to add heat. Another random tip on temperature that I have not cleared with TotalBoat, but I'm gonna say it anyway, is that when it's too cold and you like have a deadline and you need to mix epoxy, I always heat the epoxy up separately. So I'll pour the hardener into one cup and I'll pour the resin into another cup, and I'll heat gun them individually and then mix the warm epoxies together. And that's kind of a safer way of doing it than trying to heat the mixed epoxy. A pro tip is to always take your time with epoxy and make sure everything is set up and ready to go, because once you start mixing, you're on a time crunch. So like have your cups ready, if you're doing fiberglass, lay out your fiberglass, get everything done before you start mixing. And always be sure to take your time with epoxy. Go slow, measure everything ahead of time. If you're doing fiberglass, lay out the fiberglass before you start. If you're pouring into a mold, make sure your molds are clean and ready to go and leveled, because once you start mixing epoxy, you are on a timer, and you don't want to let the epoxy just sit in the cup for a really long time. And once you are ready to mix, there's a couple easy ways that you can measure the quantities of epoxy. So I think the easiest way is calibrated pumps. These are like pre-calibrated to 2:1. So 1 pump of the resin and 1 pump of the hardener will give you that correct 2:1 ratio. The problem with the pumps is if you're pouring a lot of epoxy, your arm can get really tired, and I don't like doing any amount of physical labor. So that's a lie, all I do is sand things. But you can use the mixing cups as a measuring tool. So for example, if I was gonna use this resin and I wanted to do, this is a 2:1, so I'm gonna find the column that says 2:1, which is that one, and say I want about that much resin. So like my total end number is here, so I'd pour resin up to here, and then with the resin in the cup, pour hardener up to here, and then I have the correct ratio. And the third way to do this is by weight. If you want to do it by weight, congratulations, you've chosen the most exact way to do it. However, you have to remember that the density of the resin and the hardener is different, so it's not exactly 2:1. So be sure to check the technical data sheet or the TDS on the product page on the website. I can tell you that the high performance is 100 to 45, so it'll be close, but it won't be exact. So make sure you double check and do the math. I know you love math. We all love math. All right, now that we have extremely accurately measured our resin and our hardener into a mixing cup, it is time to actually mix it up. So the first thing that we're gonna do is wear gloves. Some people make putting on gloves look cool. I'm not one of those people. For mixing, you wanna mix for about 3 to 5 minutes, and while you're mixing, be sure that you're scraping the sides, you're scraping the bottom, getting like all of those parts. Be sure you're not mixing too fast. You don't want to introduce too many air bubbles in, so just keep it at a nice, slow, steady pace for 3 to 5 minutes. And the epoxy will give you a really good visual indicator that it is mixing well, because you can see the 2 parts, and eventually it'll start turning clearer and clearer until it's mixed. TotalBoat's best practice mixing method is to actually take your mixed epoxy and pour it into a clean cup. And this will help ensure that any unmixed bits that are sticking to the sides of this cup don't get transferred over. And so then you give it yet another nice little mix in your clean cup, and you're ready to pour. And now you know how to mix and measure epoxy accurately every single time. Thank you so much from all of us here at TotalBoat. Bye.